Welcome to Celestoria, your celestial escape into sleep. Here, every week brings a new soft sci-fi or fantasy bedtime story designed to help you relax and drift away. Close your eyes and subscribe so you never miss your next journey among the stars. Tonight, we begin a special series, The Crystal Protocol, a universe where magic was sealed in crystal devices, and those who still hear its whisper are hunted. Our first chapter is called Spark in the Glass. On the dusty streets of Tormax 4, smuggler Ellin Rave steals a mysterious crystal, not knowing it will change her fate forever. Celestoria, stories that carry you to the stars. Light pierces the thickness of glass, not to break it, but to awaken the forgotten echo within. Tormax City fell asleep reluctantly, like a beast whose slumber is heavy with the promise of sudden awakening. It breathed light and metal. The air here wasn't air at all, but a haze of vapors, sounds, and phosphorescent fog, forever trembling beneath the domes. Above, intersecting arches of transit rails crisscrossed, while beneath her feet lay glass slabs through which a soft glow from the city's depths seeped upward. The city knew no night, but it knew secrets, and at night it thrummed with a special kind of life. Beneath crumbling advertisements and post-tech signs, among stalls that sold both food and souls, the night market began to stir. Heart of the shadow trade in relics, memories, and forbidden magic. Here, techno artifacts mingled with powders distilled from melted ectoplasm, and the sellers spoke in a language long banished from the Empire's protocols. This was where Ellin Rave descended, slowly with the guise of a casual buyer, but the stride of a hunter. She was not one to be easily noticed, yet if someone caught her gaze, they wouldn't look away so quickly. Tall, with slender shoulders, dark skin, and eyes the color of Helios amber, as if dust from the sun had settled in her irises. Her hair was braided into soft coils, cascading to one side. Clad in a sleek gray jumpsuit studded with rivets of smoothed copper alloy, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone long accustomed to crossing forbidden lines. But today, her heart beat faster. There was fear in her, not born of terror, but of the weight of what was unfolding. Her target lay in the southern sector, beyond the former navigation tower, now home to a collector named Ch.1. Once a relic mage, now simply a greedy old man with a long memory. He gathered everything that whispered of the world before the protocols. His collection was not just private, but ritually guarded. And the crystal Ellin had come for was not for sale, not to anyone, ever. Why risk it? Not on a whim. The crystal had been commissioned. She didn't know the client's name. She worked through a broker. But the fee was staggering, and more importantly, the offer included the phrase, "It's one of the protocols. We're sure." Ellin didn't believe it at first. The protocols were legend, unfound, unstudied, sealed away. Those who sought them were branded fools or fanatics. But if true, if even one was active, the Empire would kill to keep it hidden. And yet, she agreed, because she had to leave Tormax. Forever. This was her ticket out. She reached the old entrance, a half-dismantled gate, once equipped with sensors, now replaced by heavy doors of smooth black alloy. Ellin pulled a small box from her belt, a forged matrix, passing as official clearance. Inquisition engineers might detect the fake, but Augury had long abandoned digital defenses in favor of old magical wards. Turning the key, she stepped into the corridor. The air here was different, redolent of dust, copper, and something herbal, like a stale alchemical lab. Magical lamps, round like the eye sockets of ghostly beings, hung on either side of the passage, flickering as she approached. Their light shifted from blue to violet, and sometimes felt less like illumination and more like a watchful gaze. The chamber she entered was like a temple. Tall shelves of transparent glass, walls embedded with display cases, each holding an artifact sealed in its own capsule. Some were simple, needles made of dragon bone, boxes locked with a song. Others were terrifying, vessels containing the remnants of spells, preserving images of pain and time. But her prize was at the center. A pedestal, encircled by a protective ring of burned runes, rested a glass capsule. Inside, a crystal, deep blue, almost black, as if swallowing the light around it. But if you looked closely, it pulsed like a heart trapped in a shell. Ellin held her breath, stepped closer. Her knees bent slightly, her body, like a dancer's, instinctively crossing the boundary. She didn't notice she'd crossed the protective line. The runes didn't flare, no alarm sounded, as if something was waiting for her. She reached out and touched the glass. A moment, a discharge. Not pain, but a shiver running through her wrist, elbow, spine. She nearly recoiled, but the crystal flared, softly but unmistakably, a warmth shining from within its core. And at that moment, a sense of recognition, as if she hadn't found it. It had remembered her. "What are you?" Ellin whispered. The capsule remained intact, but the crystal now throbbed with a gentle light, uneven like breathing. She knew retreat was impossible. This artifact had awakened. It knew her touch. It had answered. She removed a protective cocoon from her belt and carefully placed the crystal inside. No sirens, no flashes. Everything was too quiet, like a dream where beneath the silence hides a storm. Returning to the corridor, she noticed the lamps flickering more rapidly. The air hummed as if charged with electricity. Yet, she passed through without incident. Behind her, the door closed again, as if no intrusion had occurred. The night market still pulsed with life, merchants arguing, street mimes performing emotions they did not feel, hunters stalking prey. But something had changed. The crystal in her bag seemed to warm. The heat didn't burn, but responded beneath her skin like an inner tremor, a thread stretched taut between her and something beyond the real. Ellin didn't know what it would do. She only knew one thing. She was no longer alone. She stepped out into the night, and the world greeted her with a silence that felt too perfect, as if everything around had held its breath for a moment. Then, from the depths of shadowed corridors, frozen under the pale glow of phosphor lamps, came a dull click, followed by another, rhythmic like drops falling in an empty metal cistern. But Ellin knew it wasn't water. It was footsteps. She turned. 3 figures emerged from around the corner, dressed in white, faces hidden behind smooth masks with no eye holes, no expression, only a black vertical line where eyes might have been. Not guards, not imperial hunters, the glass eyes. A cult whispered about even by smugglers. They didn't just believe in the protocols. They worshipped them and killed for them. Their arrival wasn't accidental. It was an ambush. Okari knew someone was coming for the crystal, and he called, not the law, but fanatics. Ellin didn't wait for a signal. She lunged forward, sliding past stalls where traders hurriedly began folding tents, sensing the danger. The market's streets sped out like capillaries in a beast's body, and she knew the route, mentally rehearsed dozens of times. But now, everything was different. Too quiet, too empty. To her left, the mechanical harp fell silent, its strings trembling ominously. To her right, the holographic display showed not goods, but a flash of crimson static. Techno-magic was breaking down, and Ellin realized it wasn't because of the pursuers. The crystal, it warmed in her backpack, but not with heat, presence, as if it had awakened. As if its gaze was not from inside the glass, but from inside her very soul. She raced across the bridge between 2 levels of the market. Beneath her, a chasm filled with glowing pipes wrapped in mist. Above, a vault where lamps flickered in a warning rhythm. The scanner at the exit froze. The screen that usually displayed blue clearance codes went black, then collapsed into a cascade of symbols, like a foreign language had invaded the code. "Damn," Ellin whispered. She leapt over the turnstile. Nearby, a security drone hissed, a cylinder studded with sensors. Normally, it would have begun ID verification. Now, only sparks. The crystal seemed to be tearing through the very fabric of the techno-field around it. And then, a sound. High-pitched, like glass scraping against glass. It wasn't external. It tore from inside her skull, calling to her, not with words, but with vibration. Behind her, footsteps. The white masked figures ran silently, but their steps echoed like nails being hammered into a coffin. One of them threw a sphere toward her, a crackling techno grenade. It bounced off a wall and exploded mid-air with a burst of green light, briefly distorting the field. Ellin ducked, rolling sideways, feeling time ripple for a second. Her heart pounded with a ragged rhythm. Pulses throbbed in her temples. But there was something else. Under her hand, through the fabric of her backpack, the crystal breathed, as if someone inside it was alive. "This isn't normal," she whispered, but she kept moving. through glitches, through trembling light barriers. One, a portal with a double holographic arch, began to warp, its projection twisting. As Ellin slipped through, she felt the space shudder like it was overloaded. Now the entire market knew what she carried. Getters pressed against walls. Some closed stalls hurriedly, deactivating like during a raid. People knew if the glass eyes hunted someone, everything nearby would soon burn. Her path led to a service tunnel, an abandoned ventilation shaft. It smelled of smoke, old dust, and vapors from lower levels. Ellin paused for a second, glancing back. In the smoky light, she saw silhouettes, 6 figures in white masks. They moved slowly, ritualistically. They knew the crystal was with her. They knew it had started to respond. And one, the leader, raised a hand. On the palm glowed a symbol, a shattered eye surrounded by 7 lines. Ellin clenched her teeth, dove into the tunnel, and disappeared into the darkness. Behind her, the world still trembled, a world beginning to recognize her. And for the first time, she understood. Running would no longer save her. The techno-black market sprawled in the heart of Tormax City, like a labyrinth of half-forgotten shadows and flickering lights. Time flowed differently here. Amidst pulsing neon signs and smoke clouds hid not only objects, but memories, forbidden powers, and shadows of the past. It was a lawless realm, where every step could cost a life, and every word might spark war. Ellin moved carefully, clutching her backpack in which her new and ancient burden slept. The crystal stolen from Ogari now seemed alive. A faint pulse echoed in her palm, as if it absorbed her anxiety and radiated its own unknowable light. She knew hiding it here was risky, but she had to sell it. Fast, quiet, without leaving a trace. Every trader in this market was a survival expert. Among the murky, fog-soaked displays, Ellin searched for a buyer who wouldn't refuse even the most enigmatic relic. Here, one could find those thirsting for ancient power, despite the Empire's bans. She stopped at a small booth, surrounded by holographic barriers, where an elderly man sold wares. An archivist known as Velmar. His face was wrinkled and tired, like an ancient scroll wrapped in centuries of dust. His deep-set, dark eyes seemed full of knowledge and heavy fear. Ellin knew little about him. Rumors said he studied forbidden texts and rare artifacts, seeking to understand forgotten forces. She pulled the crystal from its hermetic capsule and gently placed it on the counter. The light from the holographic lamp softly fell upon the glass, reflecting off the delicate runes etched onto its surface. It was as if the artifact was pulling the space around it inward, absorbing sound and light alike. Velmar took the capsule silently into his hands. His fingers were thin and trembling, like the pages of an ancient book. He traced the runes, and a flicker appeared in his eyes, a mixture of fear and reverence. He looked up at Ellin, his lips barely whispering, I know this. The words hung in the air like a death sigh. Ellin felt a coldness pierce her skin, yet she couldn't look away. "This should be sealed away forever," Velmar added, pushing the capsule aside as if afraid that his touch might unleash something terrible. She tried to speak, to explain that this was her only chance, that her life depended on this deal. But the man had already turned away, burying his gaze in the thick books and devices behind the counter. The refusal was absolute and final. Ellin swallowed the lump in her throat and reached to take the capsule back. Her fingers touched the cold glass, and suddenly, a flash, a hologram unfolded before them, light yet intangible, as if drawn from shadows and memories. Thin lines of symbols wove a net, ancient signs of the protocols, a system preserving the secrets of creation, sealing, and paradigms of control. Ellin felt her mind cloud, sinking into waves of unknowable knowledge, and a voice, strange, muffled, yet confident, as if distant, yet internal, whispered. Connection established. Partial access granted. As if in response, the space around her contracted and dissolved. Before her eyes, a fragment of a lost world unfolded. The sky blazed fiery red, as if burning at dawn. From the earth, like a wound, rose towering pillars wrapped in living light. People walked among them, their veins glowing with soft emerald light, magic flowing in their hands and living in every breath. Ellin felt her consciousness shatter, like glass that was once smooth and clear, now scattered into thousands of shards. Voices of past and present merged in her head, and she lost consciousness. When Ellin opened her eyes, the world around her seemed both strange and familiar, like a forgotten melody suddenly remembered after a long silence. She lay on a wooden platform, hard but warming, covered with a thin blanket. The air smelled of hot sand, dry grass, and a faint blend of burnt oil and old electronics. Through a window, dust-covered and filtered with pink ochre light from the setting sun, the desert outside the hut was painted in muted tones of copper and bronze. Smooth dunes rose in the distance, like sleeping waves of a copper sea. Above, the sky stretched out in the color of faded metal, cold yet tender, like the breath of a forgotten world. Beside her stood a young man, tall and slender, with long fingers seemingly made for delicate work. His face was framed by short, dark hair, and his eyes, a deep gray blue, looked at Ellin with quiet care and cautious curiosity. He sat at a table cluttered with electronic boards, wires, and delicate tools, like a kind of wizard whose magic wand was a screwdriver and soldering iron. "You're awake," he said, offering a faint smile. His voice was soft, calm, with a light accent, as if he lived on the border between the city and the desert. "I'm Ch.1." Ellin tried to sit up, but her body resisted, her muscles weak, her mind foggy. "Don't rush," he said, helping her settle more comfortably. "You were pulled back from the edge of oblivion. The right guards didn't even come near where you were." She looked at him, trying to understand who this man was and why he was here, far from the city, in this secluded corner. But before she could ask, A lump tightened in her throat. "How did you find me?" Ellin finally asked, struggling to process each word. Kai lowered his gaze to the table, fingers flicking over a board with blinking indicators. "I heard rumors." His voice grew serious. "About the awakening, about the crystal. My father, he was a scientist. He taught me that the protocols aren't just legends. He studied them his whole life. And he disappeared one day when he began searching for the truth." He sighed, his eyes returning to Ellin. "You found what they've been searching for so long, one of the protocols. I can help you understand what it means." Ellin slowly pulled the capsule with the crystal from her backpack and handed it to him. "This is the one?" she asked, watching as Kai carefully examined the ancient artifact. "Yes." He gently touched the glass casing. "It's not just a mineral. It's a vessel of memory, magic, sealed and preserved." He raised the capsule to the light and continued. "The protocols were created 70 years ago. There were 7 of them, 7 sealed entities that could control magic and turn it from chaos into law. The Empire wanted to keep the world under control. Magic was to be a tool, not a force of nature." "And now one of them is awakening?" Ellin asked, trying to grasp the magnitude of what was happening. Kai nodded. "Yes. The time of the ancient order is ending. The first protocol has activated, and this is the beginning of the end of the silence the Empire has maintained for decades." He leaned back in his chair, as if the weight of these revelations pressed not only on Ellin, but on himself as well. "You need to understand, this crystal is not just a key. It's a conduit between worlds, between past and present. It chose you. You're not just a bearer, Ellin. You are a bridge." She fell silent, feeling Kai's words seem to make the very space around them hum, emphasizing that everything was about to change. "What am I supposed to do?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "First, we need to understand what we're dealing with." Kai stood and approached the wall where a map of the planet Cauldron hung, layered with digital and handwritten notes. "There's an old techno-library that holds archives, including encrypted maps to the other protocols. We have to get there." "Why there specifically?" Ellin asked, surprised. "Because it's the only place where we can find the keys to the mystery. Information hidden for centuries. If we want to survive and comprehend the power you've awakened, we'll have to search for answers together." Kai turned to her, his eyes full of determination, yet shadowed by a quiet sadness, as if he himself was wrestling with ghosts of the past. "I know this is terrifying. I know you didn't ask for this. But we have no choice." Ellin sighed, sweeping her gaze over the desert beyond the window. "So, a long and dangerous road lies ahead." Kai smiled, for the first time openly and warmly. "Exactly, but you're not alone." And in that moment, under the pinkish glow of the sunset, 2 paths crossed. The old world guarding its secrets, and the new one, full of hopes and dangers. Kai's refuge stood on the edge of the desert district, a hut lost among sand dunes and forgotten warehouses. This place felt like the last shard of silence in an ocean of a noisy city. But the calm was deceptive. It hung by a thin thread, now stretched tight by footsteps and metal. Van Iron stood under a heavy metal canopy, his eyes cold and sharp like blades, fixed on the door behind which Ellin hid. He was the living embodiment of the Imperial Inquisition, pure cold and resolve. His wounded past had made him a relentless hunter, harsh and uncompromising. He knew that any delay could cost lives, not just his own, but everything he was trying to protect. "Open up," his voice rang out, steady but commanding. Inside, heavy footsteps responded. Kai darted to hidden panels, trying to organize defense and distract the pursuers, while Ellin clutched the backpack with the crystal, searching for a way to maintain control over the awakened power. "We can't let them take us alive," Kai muttered, gathering makeshift pulse devices. His hands trembled, not from fear, but adrenaline. Ven hadn't expected such resistance, but even he couldn't foresee what was coming next. When the doors exploded with a thunderous crash, Ellin instinctively pressed the crystal to her chest, and a surge of energy burst forth. Like an ancient elemental force unleashed from the depths, it spread in a whirlwind of light and sound, tearing the space around them. Walls shook, devices flickered, died, shuddered, and shut down. Electronic sensors embedded in every crevice went dark, one by one, as if the light itself was fading at dusk. "This is not technology," Ven breathed, stepping forward, eyes catching a shimmering arrow of pure energy in the air. He felt it. Magic. Forbidden. Forgotten. But alive. For the first time in years of hunting, something inside him shivered. A spark of doubt. A tremble in his once unshakable faith. "This isn't just a system failure," he muttered through clenched teeth. "It's a challenge." While Ellin and Kai used the chaos to break for the back exit, Ven gave orders to his men. "Hold the perimeter. Don't let them escape." Through the scorching basement air filled with sounds of destruction, the two fled into the labyrinth of tunnels. Dark and twisted like the city's veins, the city's canals, a network of steel pipes, ventilation shafts, and abandoned passages, where silence devours even the sound of your own breath. Ellin and Kai ran, relying on instinct and knowledge of the city. Every turn, every ledge, every narrow passage could be a trap. Kai, skilled with devices and systems, moved confidently, disabling sensors, blocking cameras, and creating interference. He showed Ellin hidden routes known only to a few. "We're close to the old engineering junctions," he whispered. "From there, we can reach the underground transport tunnel. It leads to the spaceport." But even in this darkness, shadows haunted them. In the distance, the metallic clang of footsteps echoed, the relentless sound of pursuit. Ven stalked the trail, precise and unyielding. He was no mere hunter. He was a symbol of order and law. But now, his chase was more than just carrying out orders. He was after what he saw in Ellin, the power awakened by the protocol, the spark that could destroy or save. Ven remembered how once he too believed in the absolute truth of the Empire, how ruthlessly he eradicated those who dared wield archaic magic. But now, doubt gnawed at him from inside, because the magic he saw was alive, and it was calling. Through the narrow canals, Ellin and Kai moved faster with each step, but there was nowhere left to retreat. "Do you believe in this?" Ellin asked, clutching the crystal that now didn't just glow. It pulsed like a living organism. Kai nodded shortly. "This is the dawn of a new era. The protocols are waking, and with them, ancient powers. If we don't take the initiative, the Empire will destroy everything." Suddenly, an explosion sounded around the corner. Ven and his agents were closing in. "Move!" Kai shouted, leading Ellin into an old ventilation shaft. They climbed inside, and the world shrank to the sound of their breaths and the pounding of their pulses. The escape through the underground tunnels felt like a ritual. Every twist, every surge made Ellin feel both alive and mortally vulnerable. She felt the protocol's power blazing within her, calling her forward despite the fear. And even when Ven stepped into the light by the hatch, he didn't chase after them. He stood there in the half-darkness, on the border of worlds, between the Empire and what it tried to forget. His eyes burned with determination and fear. Because in these fugitives, he saw not just a threat, he saw an awakening. Ellin and Kai found themselves in a labyrinth the city had forgotten long ago. Underground tunnels where past and future intertwined. They heard Ven and his men slow down, struggling to track them further. "We're heading for freedom," whispered Kai. "But this is only the beginning." With those words, they plunged into darkness, where every step was both a challenge and a hope. The darkness of the spaceport greeted them not with the sounds of arrivals and departures, but with the hum of distant machines and rare flashes of neon light. Ellin walked beside Kai, feeling her heartbeat torn between fear and hope. The backpack with the crystal felt not just like a burden, but the weight of a fate she could neither abandon nor carry lightly. She stopped at the edge of the platform, staring into the endless azure lights reflecting on the dead metal like shadows of another world. Inside, everything was tearing apart. Fear of becoming a tool for a power she couldn't understand, anger at herself for taking what she couldn't control, and a strange feeling that someone invisible and ancient awaited her. Kai quietly approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I see a storm inside you," he said, his voice soft like the rustle of sand. "You're not alone, Ellin. Never have been." She sighed, looking away. "I wanted to get rid of it. This crystal, what's inside me. But it won't let go. Like it's grown into my very aura. I try to release it, but it holds tighter." Kai looked at her, his eyes shining with understanding. "It's not just an object. It's part of you now. You're a conduit, Ellin. Not a bearer, not an owner, but a conduit. You're connected to this world more than you think." A wind blew, and a warm current swept through the empty corridors of the spaceport, awakening old mechanisms. Ellin felt that breath, the breath of magic, sealed and awakening. "What now?" she whispered. Kai smiled, but seriousness lingered in his smile. "Now, the journey to the planet Caladron. There lie the secrets of the protocols, maps and knowledge that will help us understand the power you've awakened." She pondered. It was more than just escape or survival. It was a challenge, the birth of a new story. "What if we're wrong?" Ellin asked, hiding her hands in her jacket pockets. "Then we'll face it together. No one said it'd be easy." Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Then Iron, standing nearby, quietly watching them. His eyes held mixed feelings, wariness, but also some doubt. He didn't move toward them, but didn't retreat either. Kai tensed slightly, but Ellin felt a new sensation. Not fear, but confidence. Perhaps even the beginning of change. "Are you ready?" Kai asked. Ellin nodded. "I don't know where this path leads," she said, "but I know one thing. There's no turning back." They moved toward the spaceport, beneath the hum of interstellar ships, hiding hope and danger, secrets and betrayal. Ellin was no longer just a girl with a rare resonance. She was the conduit of a new era, and her story was only beginning.